Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Bay Area travel video. We are starting from the north of Big Sur, heading all the way up to Point Reyes and coming back down. I'm so excited to see all of this area, what it has to offer. Of course, I got Evan with me.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Point Lobos. It's a little shame that it's rainy this morning, but that's part of the Bay Area. You kind of get this fog, rain all the time. And I still think it's going to be really cool. So I'm looking forward to going exploring this, and as well as all the other spots in the Bay Area.
Starting us out, we have a spot that many might not consider the Bay Area. As a matter of fact, it's generally considered part of Big Sur. But the reason I included it in this video as opposed to the Big Sur video I made is because we went during a different section of our road trip, and you can very obviously tell because the weather was quite dreary. But that doesn't change the fact that we were excited to see the first of many locations today that I think will blow your mind. Point Lobos State Reserve was established in 1967 and is a U.S. National Natural Landmark for a variety of reasons, namely the land it protects, aka Point Lobos itself. It's one of the richest marine habitats in California. I didn't bring a good zoom-in camera on this road trip, but you can just make out that there are some otters hanging out in the water here, and that's just one example of wildlife we saw. I'm sure the snorkeling and scuba diving would be exceptional in this area, but we were simply here to experience its signature hiking trails, and we begin with a short loop that overlooks Whalers Cove and Bluefish Cove. Clearly it was just a warm-up, nothing about it was all too crazy, plus Point Lobos is most well known for its bright turquoise water, which you don't really get here as much as some other spots in the park. Now, I'm sure we were at a disadvantage due to the lack of sunlight, but still wanted to point that out. I thought it would be worth mentioning. The Cypress Grove Trail is where things really escalated for me, and dare I say this one was made more beautiful because of the cloudy, rainy weather. This 1 mile round trip journey is a cakewalk with its 65 feet of elevation gain, but don't let its accessibility deceive you. This hike packs in so many great views. I most enjoyed the cypress trees and other flora, which would have been gorgeous on their own, but again, the atmosphere was unmatched because of when we visited. I'll also add, there was like nobody here, which is a stark contrast to when we drove by a few days later on our way to Big Sur. It was a completely clear, sunny day, and bam, 30-minute wait to even get in the park. So ultimately, I was glad our experience at Point Lobos went the way it did. I actually think there were more advantages to going on a cold, rainy day than we expected. The Cypress Grove Trail highlights the most impressive bluffs we'd seen up to that point, and you even got a hint of that turquoise water, which was fantastic. But all around, this really impressed me, and it came close to being my favorite attraction in the park. Up next, Sea Lion Point can be accessed by a half-mile round-trip dirt trail that's basically flat the whole way through, and really well designed the way it takes you through this meadow and along cliffs. There were some nice views of gray sand beaches out in the distance, including one where I assumed there's supposed to be a bunch of sea lions, but likely due to weather, we didn't see any. We did hear some, but didn't see them. You do get some great coastal scenery out of this though, especially with the colorful ice plant acting as a tremendous foreground to pictures and video. While it sucks this stuff is invasive to the region, it's just so beautiful. Lastly, we made our way to the Bird Island Trail, which most, including myself, would say is the highlight of Point Lobos. This has similar stats to the Cypress Grove, little under a mile and generally flat, and just like the former, Bird Island has so much stunning scenery condensed into a short hike. China Cove in particular contains some of the most vibrant watercolor I've ever seen, even without sunshine. Every angle of it was breathtaking, and these were definitely my favorite viewpoints at Point Lobos. I also really enjoyed overlooking Gibson's Beach and its lush hilly backdrop, which I think the rain and fog added a lot to as well. And then as you loop back around, you get to enjoy China Cove from the other side, which is absolutely amazing once again, and the way the water is split up by these bluffs and ridges is really cool. You even see these sea caves pop up every now and then, which are cool on their own, but the colorful rocks and cliffs add so much. Now usually there's also a ton of birds chilling up on top of these things, but just like what I talked about with the sea lions, they weren't out today likely because of the weather, which was a bit disappointing. That said, everything else about this was seriously amazing, and it's one of my favorite short trails I've probably ever been on. This Bird Island Loop Trail is absolutely phenomenal. It's easily my favorite hike in the park, which is saying a lot because I've really enjoyed the whole park so far, but that China Cove area is beautiful. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, the rest of this park was still cool to do in the clouds and everything with the rain. It was a nice, really cool, different vibe than what I'm used to on coastal view, especially in California. But definitely we need to come back for this to see this in the sun, because I think this can be unbelievable with the sun shining down on that cove of the watercolor. So yeah, overall though, Point Lobos was absolutely amazing though. I think it's a great state park, one of the best in California, maybe even one of the best in the whole United States. So yeah, absolutely recommend this place.
Point Lobos is definitely a park I'd like to return to at some point, particularly when the sun's out, but I'm still very satisfied with my experience this time around, and it made for a great start to our day. From here, we drove an hour north to Henry Cowell Redwoods State Park, right near Santa Cruz. Our next stop today is Henry Cowell State Park here in California. This is a really cool redwood park. Our incentive was just to visit any of the redwood state parks that are in this Bay Area because there's a ton of them. A lot of them are actually still recovering from fire damage. This is one of the few that has been completely unaffected these past few years. And the atmosphere with the rain and the fog, I mean, it maybe was a little bit of a disadvantage at Point Lobos if you really wanted to see that color, but here it is absolutely the weather that you're looking for because the atmosphere is just unbelievable.
Yeah, it's been a bucket list item to see the redwoods in the fog and the rain and the mist and like this, so I can't wait to go see this. I think this is going to be unbelievable.
There's quite a lot to do in Henry Cowell State Park, including a scenic train ride that takes you through the Redwoods, which looked really cool, but due to limited time we decided to save it for another visit. Rather, we participated in the flat mile-long loop trail that takes you all over this gorgeous redwood grove. This is the tallest species of tree in the world, and something about seeing them with rain and fog is magical beyond comprehension. This grove in particular I thought was incredibly lush, with tons of ferns and clovers covering the ground. We'd seen a number of redwood forests already on this trip, as Big Sur is known for having some of their own, but something about these standalone redwood parks are even more special. I think because the trees alone are the focus, the trails are designed with that in mind and you're really able to appreciate them. Eventually we came across this viewpoint that perfectly framed this one tree, and we both thought it looked particularly tall, and after conversating with the park ranger, we learned why.
Our friendly ranger just told us that San Lorenzo tree behind us is actually the tallest in the park at 282 feet. That is absolutely incredible. I knew just from a distance it looked so prominent compared to a lot of the trees around here, so I just knew it had to be significant in some way, and sure enough it's the tallest, which is just incredible. And this whole hike has been amazing.
This tree is absolutely amazing. Oh man, this whole hike has been so cool. It's just like a fairy tale.
All in all, this was one of my favorite places we visit in this video easily, likely in part because the weather adds so much atmosphere to these groves. Otherwise, it's also a really nicely kept state park, easy to navigate, and plenty of incentive to come back one day as well. It was now time to head back to the coastline for a bundle of quick pull-offs as we made our way to San Francisco and the Golden Gate Bridge. The first of these was Natural Bridges State Park, which offers a short walk that overlooks a few nice coves, with one having this bluff jutting out of the water with a cool natural bridge or arch formation. Another one I really loved can be found 10 minutes north in that Shark Fin Cove. These views looking out at the secluded cove and distant rock formation that sure enough looks like a shark fin were amazing. And because of that, I was excited to see that there was a steep trail to the beach where you can get an up-close look of the bluffs and waves. While the angles were cool, this was extremely disappointing to me because of the sheer amount of graffiti visible on the cliffs. I have no idea why people think it's cool to do that. It just really takes away from these otherwise outstanding natural landmarks. On a positive note, this was just about the only spot on our entire trip where we had this problem, so I'm glad humans haven't screwed the state too bad. But really, I mean, we're better than this. Another 5 minutes north took us to Greyhound Rock, another super short walk to this cool rounded rock formation, and nice views of a beach at its corresponding cliffs as well. Afterwards, we were pleased to see that the sun was finally coming out, which certainly can add a lot to coastal scenery, such as our next stop 10 minutes further north, Pigeon Point Light Station State Historic Park. That's a mouthful. First up were these phenomenal distant looks at the headlight with these yellow flowers all over the place. They made for a great foreground, as did the small cliffs and beach at the far end of the short trail. It's possible to get some more great views closer as well, especially with some of that ice plant I talked about earlier. The bright orange and green were such a great complement to the lighthouse, which on its own is actually quite ugly up close, I won't lie. It's really in kind of a poor state. But with some distance, this is fantastic and reminds me a lot of a lighthouse you'd see in a place like Maine, albeit with that California flair to it. Another 45 minutes north took us to our last of these Central Coast viewpoints, and this time it's Devil's Slide. At one point in time, the road which you see here was a part of Highway 1, but once a tunnel was constructed to avoid rock slides and things like that, this was left abandoned and without use. These days, visitors can actually trek the entire length of this thing by foot, and it's cool because you can decide how little or far out you want to go before turning back around. Personally, we did not go far at all since we had a lot to do today, but I thought it was a fascinating hike and I enjoyed the coastal scenery on offer.
I feel like we've been driving and stopping for the past 15 years. It's been a pretty fun time though. We've stopped at a lot of really cool beaches, coves. We're wrapping things up here at, what is this, Devil's Slide Trail?
Yeah, Devil's Slide Trail.
And then we're gonna head on to Golden Gate National Recreation Area up next.
Yeah, this drive was really cool. There's a lot of really cool spots along the way and kind of some hidden gems. So I'm looking forward to going to see the Golden Gate Bridge as well as the whole recreational area itself and watching sunset.
It was now time for what can arguably be considered the main event of the video, and that's the Golden Gate National Recreation Area. It was an hour drive north through the suburbs of San Francisco, which are by far some of the most beautiful in America. I couldn't wait to show Evan around this city as I find it incredibly unique and different from what you might come to expect from this country. All the houses and buildings are tall and narrow, crunched up next to each other, and rarely ever look the same as the next. Driving across the Golden Gate Bridge is surreal, knowing that you're right there on one of the country's, if not the world's, greatest feats of architecture. There's so many great views of the bridge you can get from its namesake National Recreation Area, and hands down the most iconic is Battery Spencer. The site was originally a military fortification built to protect San Francisco Harbor, but today it's a popular tourist destination known most for its unbelievable vantage point. Getting that straightaway look at the bridge with San Francisco in the backdrop is about as photogenic as it gets. This was where we also met up with our friend Robin from Germany, who came out to California for its theme parks, but also ended up joining us for the remainder of the road trip.
My name is Robin. You usually know me from Costa Dash, but now I'm here in San Francisco.
The commentary is so good.
One of the best views on the trip, without hesitation. I've been here before, but Battery Spencer is just, it's the view of San Francisco and the Golden Gate Bridge. Oh my God, it's incredible.
Oh man, this is so cool. It's one of the most iconic things in the world. So to finally see it in person, especially from just like with the lighting and everything right now, oh man, this is surreal.
Another top tier angle of the Golden Gate Bridge can be seen from the pull-off at Hawk Hill. This is elevated much higher up and is nowhere near as close to the bridge, but in my opinion it's nearly just as impressive as you get many more elements in frame. You have this ridge out in front of you, steep cliffs, an even better view of the city skyline, so on and so forth. Now a lot of people don't seem to realize that this park has a lot more to offer than just Golden Gate viewpoints. There's tons of spectacular mountain scenery and some of the best coastline we saw on the entire trip. A highly underrated spot is Point Bonita Lighthouse, which is so iconic but sadly is only open Sundays and Mondays. Fortunately, you will find other opportunities to view the headlight from afar, but it's definitely a bummer we couldn't get up close or inside of it. This is still worth checking out though, because the trail to get there offers tremendous views. You have high cliffs, tucked away coves, rock formations, and even the bridge out in the distance for good measure. This was a lot of fun for us, but I'd love to return with the added bonus of Point Bonita Lighthouse being open. Sharing the same parking lot is also Battery Mendel, which is one of my top 3 favorite locations in the rec area easily. It's just about half a mile long, and for that reason I was shocked that we were the only ones here.
Battery Mendel is one of my favorite things in this park because it's really cool. It combines some history and some amazing views as well.
Yeah, Battery Mendel was built during World War II when we were worried about the invasion coming over from the Pacific. And so yeah, it's built to be a battlement and it's just been left here ever since.
In addition to some pretty cool history, the viewing areas are positioned beautifully and you get to see a lot on either side. On one end, you face a stunning black sand beach with steep bluffs, sharp rock formations, and if you look closely, a really amazing perspective of the aforementioned headlight. All of these elements would be worth coming for on their own, but then you head to the other side and my God, the rolling green hills are mesmerizing up against the coast with beaches and coves complementing them wonderfully. Maybe it was the lighting that added to this as well, but Battery Mendel is remarkably underrated in my opinion. We had time for one more spot before running out of daylight and we picked the Rodeo Beach Coastal Trail. This whole thing is like 5 miles long, but you don't need to go far at all to get those amazing views of the water. The gray sand Rodeo Beach is absolutely massive and a great focal point to this hike, but I also love the plethora of hidden coves that you can take spur trails to see the inside of. The wind was gnarly, so it became borderline painful to stand up here for too long, but we still did our best to brave the conditions for sunset. This was an unbelievable experience, and the Golden Gate National Recreation Area seriously exceeded my expectations that day.
No, I just think this is hilarious. We tried to record a review here. It was so windy this day that you can't hear anything.
Now we're basically about as far north as we end up in the video, so you might think we're coming to a close, but actually no, we're far from it. But stay tuned because we have a lot of exciting stuff to talk about that we did the next day. First up was Muir Woods National Monument, a bucket list park to see more of the Redwoods.
All right, it's another day. Looking like the weather's gonna be much nicer today. We're starting here at Muir Woods National Monument, which I'm really intrigued to check out because everyone talks about it. I think of all the redwood parks in the country, it's probably the most visited above Redwood National Park up north.
Yeah, I can't wait for this. The Redwoods are so iconic and Muir Woods is probably one of the most famous spots to see them, so I can't wait to go see more.
Muir Woods National Monument was established as such in 1908 and protects an old-growth coastal redwood forest that, due to its proximity to the Pacific Ocean, is regularly shrouded in a coastal marine layer of fog that contributes to a wet environment that encourages vigorous plant growth. I'm unsure if this is any different from, say, the Redwood Grove we visited earlier in the video or those in Big Sur, but it was still interesting hearing about this from Wikipedia. In any case, we were here to quickly knock out the main 2-mile Redwoods, a loop that, should I add, you do need a reservation to do nowadays. It was easy for us to get our hands on, but I thought I'd bring that up since it's the only location maybe on the entire trip that we needed one for. As I'm sure you can tell, this is a highly visited park, and with its national monument designation, I had high hopes for it. Maybe it's just me, but I think it's for that reason I may have walked away slightly underwhelmed. By all means is it still worth checking out, but I just felt as though it was another redwood grove. Now, that's not a problem for me because I absolutely love these forests, but I guess I anticipated something a little more from Muir Woods. I will say, designing the trail right alongside Redwood Creek was a great touch, as that certainly adds to the beauty of the park.
Yeah, Muir Woods is really cool. It's just like another really beautiful redwood grove, and we were so lucky to catch it when it's quiet here, which I love. I will say I could imagine myself being a little frustrated coming here on a busy day, knowing that there's so many redwood groves in this area that are as pretty.
Yeah, it's really cool. While the redwood groves in this area are also kind of on par, but this is still really cool to visit, and of course it's just so iconic and so famous that you kind of have to see it at least once, so I'm so glad we came in. It's still a really cool place.
Now, there's a whole bunch of waterfalls in the Bay Area, and the one that we chose to visit was Cascades Falls. Getting here here would turn out to be quite the adventure, as we had to navigate some ridiculously tight neighborhood roads. Part of me enjoyed it for how scenic it was, and this is just a remarkable area to live, but at the same time, I kind of hated it because every corner felt like an incoming heart attack.
We made it to Cascades Falls Trailhead. I know this isn't supposed to be anything crazy, it's just a small little hike we wanted to do as an add-on to our day, but I did not realize how much of an adventure it was going to be to get here. I wasn't even the one behind the wheel, but...
That was super stressful going through. It wasn't non-paved roads or anything, it was just tight neighborhoods. It was like driving in England or something like that. It was just really, really stressful to get to here. So, I mean, I'm hoping this waterfall's really cool.
I don't know if it'll be quite worth it.
I don't know if it'll be worth it, yeah.
Cascades Falls is a nice, easy half-mile round-trip hike that takes you through some redwoods, over and around a creek, and ends with a pleasant waterfall. Though it's only about 15 feet tall, the location of these falls really make it, and the fact that it's just incredibly serene. We once again didn't see anyone out on the trail, and I think that added to it for sure. Having said that, considering the effort it takes to get here, it's definitely skippable. Especially considering this region has so many parks and hikes I would not say the same about. For example, nearby Mount Tamalpais State Park is great and has a wide variety of experiences on offer. It's highly visited in part due to its close proximity to San Francisco, but it also contains one of the most prominent mountains in the Bay, which many refer to just as Mount Tammy. While it's possible to utilize a summit trail to get to the top of it, we went the route of driving up Ridgecrest Boulevard to get to its east peak. You know those pictures of cloud inversions in the Bay Area? This is where you go if you want to see one. For us, coming for sunrise when that happens wasn't much of an option, and when you're going this hard on an itinerary, you need all the sleep you can get. But even though we didn't get to experience this phenomenon, East Peak was well worth visiting, as the short hike ends in 360-degree panoramic views. You can look for miles in any direction, and you'll notice all sorts of aspects that make this a magnificent summit overlook. There's also a fire tower that symbolizes Mount Tammy's elevation of more than 2,500 feet, which is quite impressive given how close it is to the ocean. But scenic vistas aren't the only thing you'll find here. Head to the Pantel Campground parking lot for one of our favorite hikes of the trip. The Dip C and Steep Ravine Loop is 3.7 miles round trip with 964 feet of elevation gain. I'd recommend going clockwise as opposed to counterclockwise, as you'll knock out all of your uphill in the shade, and spoiler alert, there is a really cool ladder on this hike that's much more enjoyable to climb up than climb down. So that already makes this a rather unique trail, as you're going to lose all of your elevation on the outbound journey, and you'll get some spectacular coastal views while you're at it. The forest, mixed with mountains, mixed with ocean, is such a great combination, and definitely brought me back to the Golden Gate National Recreation Area yesterday. Eventually, you'll see the trail split, and there will be a sign that says Dip C pointing you in the direction of the Steep Ravine Trail. To me, this is where the hike goes from good to great as you head deep into the woods. While these trees may not be redwoods, they're still very tall and dense, and for your uphill return trip, you'll hug Webb Creek, which causes an explosion of greenery in the canyon. This is an example of a hike where even though it's rather challenging and exhausting, it's so interactive that you don't mind so much. There's a whole bunch of these bridges, which are built so nicely into their environment, should I add, while also granting nice perspectives of everything around you. Even the steps are easy to navigate carved rock that are incredibly scenic. I was blown away by the sheer amount of ferns prevalent on the Steep Ravine Trail. Like, I think the only time I've seen more was at Fern Canyon and Redwood National Park. And that literally has fern in the name. And here you also have waterfalls and cascades though, for a change. All of the hike's fame isn't as a result of any of the things I've mentioned though, it's actually this ladder right next to a small waterfall. This was so much fun and a great way to switch things up to keep the trail interesting. It was a really clever idea to implement this when otherwise steps or switchbacks likely wouldn't cut it, and honestly, I think there should have been more of this towards the end. The finale is like the only part of the hike I'd criticize for not being all that exciting and the trail design feeling uninspired with its constant switchbacks, but otherwise, this was great.
Tough hike, but we're just wrapping up the Dip C and Steep Ravine Trail. I have to say that was a fantastic hike. Even though people always kind of know this for the ladder section, I have to say the rest was absolutely awesome.
Yeah, it was really cool. Starting off with those really good coastal views, and then we get into that little canyon area, the deep ravine area. That is so cool. It's just so lush. Yeah, absolutely amazing hike. So glad we did that.
10 minutes west, you'll once again hit the coastline and one of my favorite views of it in the region, Muir Beach Overlook. To my surprise, this is a part of the Golden Gate National Recreation Area on its northwestern corner, despite the fact that it very much feels separated from all that we experienced in the park yesterday afternoon. Regardless, I think so highly of this viewpoint, it's definitely worth the detour. It is absolutely phenomenal. It's got a super cool trail that snakes its way to the end of a ridge with an observation platform positioned at its furthest point. Both directions are genuinely gorgeous with those rolling green mountains, cliffs, rocks, and light blue water. Facing south is hands down my favorite though, as it reminds me of something out of Big Sur. I might even go as far as to rank Muir Beach Overlook as one of my favorite coastal views of the entire trip.
Man, the first half of today has been just absolutely unreal. The second half is going to be spent at Point Reyes, which originally I was going to be including in this video, but then I realized there's so many different spots, this is already going to be so long. So instead, that'll be in its own separate Point Reyes video. But this one's not done. We still have a few more spots in the Golden Gate National Recreation Area on the other side of the bridge. What do you think of this spot though, Muir Beach?
Oh man, this is absolutely amazing. This is up there with like Ragged Point as well as some of the other Big Sur viewpoints. It has one of the best coastal views in California. This is absolutely amazing.
The next day, we finally started making our way back to San Diego, heading to to the southern few districts of the Golden Gate National Recreation Area that are too often overlooked despite being located pretty much within San Francisco city limits.
So we are back in the Golden Gate National Recreation Area. This time we're in the Sutro or Sutro district. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it, but we're doing the Land's End Trail, and then we're gonna head over to Fort Funston, 15 minutes away.
The Land's End Trail is 3.5 miles round trip, but most people who come here will just do a small fraction of it since the views remain pretty much consistent the whole time. You begin with this enormous cluster of cypress trees that line the trail until it hits the coast, and from there it's non-stop views of cliffs and the Golden Gate Bridge. Nothing particularly unique considering all that we've done up to that point, but on its own, this is another breathtaking part of this park that's definitely not to be missed. I do want to show a lot of love to Fort Funston though, which I think is highly underappreciated. It's a very popular spot to maybe walk your dog, walk along the beach, but I don't think coming here to hike is quite as common. The nearly 2-mile coastal loop encapsulates everything that makes the California coast so special. You begin with a beautiful green space and some high elevation beach views, but what's different about Fort Funston is it's got some rather unique elements thrown in too. For example, these small sand dunes are stunning, especially with those patches of flora covering them. Then you get some distant city views to remind you where you are. That's really cool. And then you've got some neat historical remnants, specifically batteries and missile sites that you can read up on near the parking lot. At your furthest point, the trail then heads down to the beach and you'll get to enjoy those cliffs and flora from a different perspective. And when I really think about it, there's not too many instances this trip where we've ended up on a beach, let alone one that's amazing. The bluffs come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, and something different, colors too. There's some very interesting orange and yellow hues that you'll see if you're paying attention. Then Fort Funston saves the best for last, with the staircase back up to the lot where you get to take in the green grass, colorful ice plant, some flowers, the list goes on, all while you have that endless white sand beach in the background. Real quick, I'd also like to take note of the fact that in this video alone, I've highlighted at least one black sand beach, gray sand beach, and white sand beach, which is really interesting and diverse.
So it's been really cool in the Golden Gate Recreation Area on the south end of the Golden Gate Bridge. We've actually done 2 different areas, Land's End and then Fort Funston. These are both really cool. Like I think a lot of people know of the Golden Gate Rec area for what's north of the bridge, aka what we did earlier on in the video.
Yeah, the Land's End viewpoint is so cool, getting the view of the Golden Gate Bridge out there as well as the coastline, and then coming here and getting more coastal bluffs and more awesome views of the ocean. Yeah, this is awesome. It's just another thing to add to this recreation area that makes it so amazing.
Alright, I promise we're almost done. We've just got one more spot to highlight, and it's really not nature oriented, but I suppose it's adjacent, since it relates to many things in this video. Twin Peaks is one of my favorite places to visit in San Francisco, as it's easily the best view possible of its skyline and suburbs. Not to mention, you can climb up these 2 rounded hills whose summits give distinct perspectives of the city. We watched as the sun made its way down and reflected on a jam-packed few days of exploring the Bay Area, easily one of my favorite parts of the country.
What better place to wrap up the Bay Area video than a view looking out at San Francisco, one of our great cities here in the United States. It's been a ride, hasn't it?
Oh man, the Bay Area is absolutely so special. I loved it so much. I can't wait to come back one day.
Thank you all so much. I'll see you all in the next one from Point Reyes National Seashore. Peace out.